Hello everybody, I hope you're having a good day. I thought I would read you a short story from Horrid Henry book. Horrid Henry book. And Horrid Henry is written by an author called Francesca Simons. The story I'm going to read you today is Perfect Peter's Horrid Day. Hope you enjoy. Henry, use your fork, said Dad. I'm using my fork, said Peter. Henry, sit down, said Mum. I'm sitting down, said Peter. Henry, stop spitting, said Dad. Said Peter. Henry, chew with your mouth shut, said Mum. I'm chewing with my mouth shut, said Peter. Henry, don't make a mess, said Dad. I'm not making a mess, said Peter. What? Said Mum. Perfect Peter was not having a perfect day. Mum and Dad were too busy yelling at Henry to notice how good I am, thought Peter. When was the last time Mum said, "Marvellous, Peter, for using your fork. Wonderful, Peter, for sitting down. Superb, Peter, for not sitting. Fabulous, for not chewing with your mouth open. Perfect, Peter. You never make a mess." Perfect Peter dragged himself upstairs. Everyone just expects me to be perfect, he thought. From downstairs came raised voices. Henry, get your muddy shoes off the sofa, yelled Dad. Henry, stop being so horrid, yelled Mum. Perfect Peter started to think. What if I was horrid? Thought Peter. Peter's mouth dropped open. What a horrid. He looked round quickly to make sure nobody had noticed. He was alone in his immaculate bedroom. No one would ever know that he had had such a terrible thought. Imagine being horrid. No, that would. Peter finished his letter to his favourite auntie. He read a few pages from his favourite magazine, Best Boy, got into bed and turned his light off. Out being asked. Imagine being horrid. If I were horrid, thought Peter, what would happen? When Peter woke up the next morning, he did not dash down to get his breakfast ready. Instead, he lazed in bed for 5 extra minutes. When he finally got out of bed, Peter did not straighten his duvet, nor did Peter pump his pillows. Instead, Peter looked at his tidy room with a very wicked thought. Quickly, before he could change his mind, he took off his pajama top and did not fold it neatly. Instead, he dropped it on the floor. Mum came in. Good morning, darling. You must be tired if you slept in. Peter hoped she would notice his untidy room. Mum didn't say anything. Notice anything, Mum? Said Peter. Mum looked around. No, Oh, said Peter. What? I haven't made my bed. You clever boy. You remembered it was wash day. She stripped the sheets and the cover and then scooped up the pyjama top that Peter had left on the floor. Thank you, dear, said Mum as she smiled and left. Peter frowned. Clearly, he would need to work harder than that. He looked at his beautifully arranged books. No, he gasped as a dreadful thought sneaked into his head. Then Peter squared his shoulders. Today was a horrid day, and horrid he would be. He went over to his books and he knocked them over. Henry! bellowed Dad. Get up this minute! Henry slumped past Peter's door. He decided he would call Henry a horrid name. Hello, ugly, he said, and then he went wild and stuck out his tongue. Henry marched into Peter's bedroom and he glared at Peter. What did you call me? he said. Peter screamed. Mum ran into the room. Stop being horrid, Henry. Look at what a mess you've made in here. You called me ugly, said Henry. Of course he didn't. You did too. Peter never calls people names. Now pick up those books you've knocked over. I didn't knock them over, said Henry. Well, who did then? The man on the moon, said Mum. Henry pointed at Peter. He did, said Henry. Did you, Peter? Peter wanted to be really, really horrid and tell a lie, but he couldn't. I did it, Mum, said Peter. Don't be silly. Of course you didn't, said Mum. You're just saying that to protect Henry. Mum smiled at Peter and frowned at Henry. Now, leave Peter alone and get dressed, said Mum. But it's the weekend, said Henry. So? But Peter's not dressed. I'm sure he was about to get dressed before you barged in. See, he's taken off his pyjama top already. I don't want to get dressed, said Peter boldly. You poor boy, said Mum. You must be feeling ill. Pop back into bed and I'll go bring your breakfast up. Just let me clean the sheets. Put some clean sheets on. Perfect Peter scowled a tiny scowl. Clearly he wasn't very good at being horrid yet. He would have to try harder. At lunch, Peter ate pasta with his fingers. No one noticed. Then Henry scooped up pasta with his fists and slurped. Henry, use your fork, said Dad. Peter spat into his plate. Peter, are you choking? said Dad. Henry spat across the table. Henry, stop that disgusting spitting at once, said Mum. Peter chewed with his mouth open. Peter, is there something wrong with your teeth? asked Mum. Henry tromped and dribbled and gulped with his mouth as wide as possible. Henry, this is your last warning. Keep your mouth shut when you eat, shouted Dad. Peter didn't understand. Why didn't anyone notice how horrid he was? He stretched out his foot and he kicked Henry under the table. Henry kicked him back harder. Peter screamed. Ow! Henry got told off. Peter got dessert. Peter didn't know what to do. No matter how hard he tried to be horrid, nothing seemed to work. Now, boys, said Mum, Grandma is coming for tea this afternoon. Please keep the house tidy and leave the chocolates alone. What chocolates? Said Henry. Never you mind, said Mum. You'll have some when Grandma gets here. Then Peter had a truly stupendous, horrid idea. He left the table without waiting to be excused and sneaked into the living room. Peter searched high and low. Peter found the large box of chocolates hidden behind the books. He opened the box. Then a tiny bite out of every single chocolate. When he found the good ones, the gooey chocolate fudge-scented ones, he ate them. The yucky raspberry and strawberry and lemon creams, he put them back. Thought Peter. He felt excited. What had he done? What he had done was absolutely awful. Mum and Dad were definitely going to know. When Peter looked around the tidy sitting room, he thought to himself, why not mess it up a bit? Peter grabbed a cushion from the sofa. He was about to fling it on the floor when he heard someone sneak in the room. What are you doing? Said Henry. Nothing, ugly, said Peter. Don't call me ugly, he said. You're a toad. Toad, ugly. Mum and Dad ran in the room. Henry, shouted Dad. Stop being horrid. I'm not being horrid, said Henry. Peter is calling me names. Mum and Dad looked at each other. What is going on? Don't lie, Henry, said Mum. I did call him a name, Mum, said Peter. I called him ugly, because he is ugly. So there. Mum stared at Peter. Dad stared at Peter. Henry stared at Peter. Peter called you a name. It's because you called him one first. Now, leave Peter alone. Mum and Dad left. Serves you right, Henry, said Peter. You're very strange today, said Henry. No, I'm not. Oh, yes, you are. You can't fool me. Listen. Want to play a trick on Grandma? No, said Peter. Grandma's here, said Dad. Mum, Dad, Henry and Peter and Grandma sat down together in the sitting room. Let me take your bag, Grandma, said Henry sweetly. Oh, thank you, dear, said Grandma. When no one was looking, Henry took Grandma's glasses out of the bag and hid them behind Peter's cushion. Mum and Dad passed around the tea and homemade biscuits on their best china plates. Henry sat on the edge of the sofa and held his breath. Any second now, Mum would get half-eaten box of chocolates out. Mum stood up and got the box. Would you like to pass the chocolates? Mum said. Okay, said Peter. His knees felt wobbly. Everyone was about to find out how horrid he had been. Peter held out the box. Would you like chocolate, Mum? Peter said. His heart was pounding. No, thanks, said Mum. "What about me?" said Henry. "Would you like a chocolate, Dad?" said Peter. His hand shook. "No, thanks," said Dad. "What about me?" said Henry. "Shh, Henry," said Mum. "Don't be so rude." "Would you like a chocolate, Grandma?" said Peter. There was no escape now. Grandma loved chocolates. "Yes, please," said Grandma. She peered closely into the box. "Let me see. What will I choose? Now, where's my specs?" Grandma reached into her bag and fumbled about. "That's funny," said Grandma. "I'm sure I bought them. Oh, well, never mind." Grandma reached into the box and chose a chocolate and popped it into her mouth. "Oh," said Grandma, "strawberry cream. Go on, Peter, have a chocolate." "No, thanks," said Peter. "What about me?" screamed Henry. "None for you," said Dad. "That's not how you ask." Peter gritted his teeth. If no one was going to notice the chewed chocolates, he'd have to do it himself. "I will have a chocolate," announced Peter loudly. "Hey, who's eaten all the fudge ones? And who's taken who's taken bites out of the rest?" "Henry!" yelled Mum. "I've told you 1,000,000 times to leave the chocolates alone." "It wasn't me," said Henry. "It was Peter." "Stop blaming Peter," said Dad. "You know he never eats sweets." "It's not," said Peter. Henry. Then he snatched the box from Peter. "I want some chocolates." He snatched it back. It flew open and the box fell on the floor. Chocolates flew everywhere. "Henry, go to your room," yelled Mum. "It's not fair," screeched Henry. "I'll get you for this, Peter." Then Horrid Henry ran out of the room, slamming the door behind him. Grandma patted the sofa beside her. Peter sat down. He could not believe it. What did a boy have to do to get noticed? "How's my best boy?" asked Grandma. Peter sighed. Grandma gave him a big hug. "You're the best boy in the world, Peter, you know that." Peter growled. Grandma was right. He was the best. But wait, today was his horrid day. No! He was perfect. His horrid day was over. He was frustrated. He was much happier being perfect. Oof. Being horrid was horrible. "I've had my horrible day," thought Peter. "Now I can be perfect again." What a marvellous idea. Peter smiled and leaned back against the cushion. "Oh dear," Grandma. "That sounds like my specs. I wonder how they got there." Mum looked at Peter. Dad looked at Peter. "It wasn't me," said Peter. "Of course not," said Grandma. "I must have dropped them. Silly me." Said Dad. Perfect Peter ran into the kitchen and looked about. "Now that I'm perfect again, what good deeds can I do?" he thought. Then Peter noticed all the dirty teacups and plates out on the worktop. He had never done the washing up all by himself before. Mum and Dad would be so pleased. Peter carefully washed and dried all the dishes. Then he stacked them up and carried them to the cupboard. "Boo!" shrieked Horrid Henry, leaping out of the cupboard door. Henry vanished. Mum and Dad ran in. The best china lay in pieces all over the floor. "Peter!" yelled Mum and Dad. "You horrid boy!" yelled Mum. "Go to your room!" yelled Dad. But, no buts, shouted Mum. "Oh, my lovely dishes!" Perfect Peter ran to his room. "Ah!" shrieked Peter. It was a horrid day. Well, I hope you have a better day and do some great thinking, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.